Riddle me this, Alice. What podcast are we recording today?
Well, it's Gemini Movies, the twin movie podcast with your host Alice. See het pronouns. And who are you with, Lil?
It's me, Ludovico. Sometimes limited when I'm on Twitter or like doing Vaporwave. And I got they them pronouns.
Heck yeah.
And today we're talking about some volcanic activity.
Yeah, we're talking about those volcanoes. But before that starts, we can have a quick talk about what we've been up to lately. I'll start with you. What have you been doing lately?
What have I been doing? All kinds of stuff. I've been everywhere. I've been hiking. I've been at a clothing exchange of like LGBT people and got some new clothes. And I've watched a lot of stuff, mostly Pinocchio related, but that's gonna be important in a few months, not right now.
Anything you want to mention South Art in particular, or not? Nothing?
No, not really right now. I don't have any recommendations.
Yeah.
And what have you been doing?
I've been just mostly doing some things, doing some work in my city, doing some side projects, etc., etc. I've been besides of watching movies and stuff, I've been consuming some things lately. Two quick things I want to mention. First I've been watching lately a lot of Metal Hero stuff. Which Metal Hero is so in the 80s, the people that do Kamen Rider like Super Sentai, which is Power Rangers in America and the rest, they had the thing called Metal Hero, which was basically it was basically just riding the cocktails of like Robocop and stuff. It's as the name implies, it's mostly like a robotic or like guy with power armor and stuff like that. Doing crimes. A lot of them are like crime team, like some cop, like some things. And they're very interesting. Unlike Kamen Rider and like Super Sentai and stuff like that, they don't really have a formula. Like the first three shows are called like the Space Sheriff shows, so like about Space Sheriff solving crimes. And then you just go into Robocop ripoffs, cop shows. You have one called Ninja's a Liar, that's a ninja with guns. I don't know what that has to do with robots and power armor, but it's part of the official series.
It sounds very 90s.
Yeah, it's been very fun because a lot of these shows don't really have like a lot of these shows go much more like not dark, but go much more stylistically weirder than a lot of like even like 80s and like 80s Santa and Kamen Rider. So you just get a lot of really weird type of stuff. I've been watching Cider, which is like I think the second one in the Space Sheriff series, the third one, and it's just kind of horror series at points. It just goes so really dark. I also watched Ziban, which is basically just a Robocop ripoff, and it's very fun. There's an episode about evil plant people in this Robocop show. Anyway, good recommendation, good shows. Really fucking weird gems of the 80s and 90s. And also I've been reading some comics, most importantly because of a friend of mine in another Discord. I've been reading Crime Doesn't Play, which is a 50s, like 40s I think, anti-crime propaganda thing. So here's how it works. Normally, first you must know that this comic says every single story if this is real. But first, let me set up. So normally this has a setup of like here's a story based on like some famous gangster that are normally like not 100%, but they're basically in some reality. Then they have some story that they came as real, and then it's not. And then they have like detective stories like whodunits. And most importantly, I'm gonna show this. They have a host because this was like a rip-off. When this started, this was a host. This was basically a rip-off of like 40s and 50s like horror comics from America, which have hosts. So they started to do in this 100% real crime comic anthology thing. Their own hosts. I'm gonna show this. As you can see, this is Mr. Crime, the crime ghost. He is a crime ghost that makes criminals do bad things and has a dog hat.
Yeah, that's pretty
Uh,
interesting. Why? Why is that? That guy looks really crimey. Even like the criminal he's influencing.
yeah, so every story of this basically ends with crime ghost influences somebody to do a crime. And then, because this is like a 50s crime propaganda thing, it goes into the thing of like, oh, you see, crime literally turns every single story. Crime doesn't pay, and the criminal like gets shot or killed in a mean comic ways. It's like very funny because it's like it's there's like two groups when I read these stories. It's like one group, oh, this is like incredibly bad in its morals and moralistic and actually cause gross attitudes towards crimes and everything. Then I'm like, heck yeah, crime doesn't pay. This guy got shot by the police like 50 times in an absurd way because it's like a 50s propaganda comic and it has a crime ghost.
So it's anti-crime, but also crime exploitation.
Yeah, it's like a listener, like I think it's considered like the first like crime exploitation comic. It's like incredibly loaded to us.
Good, good. So
So that's what I've been doing.
pretty good.
So actually
So
not good.
yeah, actually, kind of half good, half what the hell. But
Yeah.
let's see. We watched Dante's Peak and Volcano, both from the year 1997, if I don't
Yeah.
misremember. Yes. Uh, let's see. How did you enjoy these two movies?
Uh, I enjoyed both of them fine. I think I think Volcano may we're gonna probably say this is the better one, but like I think I like Volcano a little bit more. It does some interesting stuff. It tries to have less of a focus on the protagonist. I think Dante's Peak is barely balling until like its second half, basically.
Yeah.
But Volcano is also a bit more low budget. It's a bit less. It's a bit more like nothing else. But I think I enjoyed Volcano more. I think both of them are like fine entertainment. Like this was disaster movies from this era. I think both of them are at the end of the day fine movies. If I had to give them bags of a popcorn, I would give them 3 bags of popcorn out of 5.
Yeah, that sounds about like my opinion. I liked them well enough. I'm nostalgic for Volcano because I saw it as a kid, but I liked them both for like specific stuff that they have, and they're pretty entertaining. I guess Volcano is a bit more better popcorn entertainment.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, before we get into the bigger discussion, let's get out some content warnings. Do you want to do
yeah.
that,
So,
Alice?
so yeah, content warning. You can just talk about racism. Gonna mess American politics, and is there anything else?
Death and
Yeah, that.
imperialism.
That, imperialism, and natural disasters.
Yes, right. That should also be mentioned. Good. So let's take the time machine. Let's bring our brains back to 1997 and the like contemporary culture of the time, and let's see in what kind of world these movies came out.
Yeah,
We both did some research, mostly you this time, because
yeah,
I was pretty distracted. I had a lot of stuff
yeah,
going
yeah,
on. Um,
yeah. That.
but we both read up on a bunch of articles that came out around the time, talking about the movie, talking about like this movie landscape. Uh, so yeah, let's bring the listeners into that era by describing what was going on at the time.
Yeah, so disaster movies. The way the disaster movies people are familiar with, well, listeners of this podcast are familiar with, are a bit, at least from like the Western America, are a bit more different than what they used to be in the old days. So disaster movies have been a thing since like early cinema, but in specifically they had like a height in like the 50s, 60s and 70s. and specifically a lot of them were more focused on like they're more focused either on Zen. They were focused on more Zen like disaster things, and also like real events. So there's movies about like the Hindenburg, like the Titanic, and specifically a lot of those are more compact. Like those movies would be about like a guy, or like a group of people would get stuck on like a hotel that's on fire. And they would have to escape. And specifically, what during the 70s, there was a big boom of disaster movies because they worked as like good like character pieces. There would be movies would put like famous character actors doing bits, and all of them would be doing like their own bit as like an ensemble. So there used to be in the 70s there was like a big explosion of these disaster movies because everybody was just putting all these character actors together and making them movies. Which then exploded like late in the 70s, which means there's not a lot of like 80s disaster movies. The most famous one is like Airplane, which is a parody of those type of movies. Which is a parody of a movie called which is a parody of a movie about the people getting stuck in a plane with a bomb. And then we reached the 90s. With going back in the 90s, there was this little thing that started in the 80s called neoliberalism, which led to like a lot of like idealism about, well, we're stuck with this miserable what we live in. We cannot do anything about, no change. But also, it morphed in the 90s also in this like, oh, there's this new hope, and this new hope is we fixed everything and there's no problems anymore.
Alice, didn't you hear? It was the end of history.
Yeah, there was this little thing called the end of history.
And
which is this good old political theory that says that we win history, Ludo. We ended history. There's no more problems.
There was like the end screen at some point, and after that, just credits roll.
Yeah. So like specifically because like this happens a lot in a lot of Western countries as well, and other places assimilated by this capitalistic view of things. But in specific in America, I think we also need to put into this another thing. In a lot of countries during the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, there was a lot of like environmental themed media, specifically about natural disasters. But a lot of that media basically never existed in America. A lot in America for a variety of reasons, particularly good old oil lobbies and etc. etc. It's in the mainstream. So in the 90s, with the general view, because of stuff like the end of history and just this idea of like the neoliberalism victory, the victory of just we both cannot think of a better future, and both we win everything. There's no more poverty. There's no other thing. You see, there was that image of like, I think when Bill Clinton was elected in the first. In his first term, there's that picture of him doing like disaster solo because hey, good times for everyone. So like because of that, disaster movies became big because like, if you set up everything, what's the next enemy that like an American writer actor can think of?
Yeah.
The Earth itself. So there was like a lot of disaster movies about that. So you had stuff like
the Russians weren't suddenly like an easy villain anymore. So
yeah.
The next best thing is nature.
Yeah. The enemy of humanity's most classical enemy.
I guess a variation on that is like space. Like 90s had a lot of like a resurgence of like sci-fi movies.
Yeah.
And like space also being like as this frontier and this like challenge, since like the problems of Earth seemed so solved for Americans.
Yeah, it's this thing because like there's this thing where like there was this view in mainstream a lot like this was, like I said, this was also not in just American media, but specifically not of American media. There was this idea of like we solved everything, so like the enemies I think existed in a lot of it were like less material enemies, well, like nature is a material, but like like less, like there's just a lot of disaster movies, a less material version of nature. Like a lot of disaster movies don't really even mess with climate science at all, besides one line.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's an it's like an easy way to make a to make like a big enemy scale thing without messing a lot of like society issues, a lot of things. While also being about those things, of course. And of course there's elements of stuff from Zars and other like horror from like the 70s and 60s and 80s of like there's a specific type of thing about we're gonna talk about this more about who is like seen as the victim of this thing, who's like seen the victim of like this. But yeah, there was like because of this there was like because of the history neoliberalism about stuff. There was a big boom of disaster movies that does change from like the initial wave of like 50s, 60s, 70s. Like, things that are just okay. This is technically yes or that, but it's more like some people get stuck on like an elevator that's on fire, etc., etc.
Yeah, there's also like
Well,
the element of technology being at a different point, right? Back then it was very hard to like show some kind of natural disaster destroy an entire city, and then suddenly in the 90s we had like CGI and advanced model technology. So suddenly
for
you
sure.
can like make a spectacle out of like destroying famous places.
Yeah, there's like that's not the last, but there's like a boyalistic element to a lot of these movies where like the distraction must be filled, but also you are here for the spectacle of famous place you live in. You, as the implied American viewer, lives in.
Yeah.
Of like you are both meant to be scared but entertained by that.
As much as I hate quoting the Bushido, there's that
Why?
there's that part in Ghost Talk where it talks about meditating on death, right? And that
Yeah.
each day you should like meditate on death. And I feel like a lot of these catastrophe movies are like because like so many Americans were like very removed from the like idea of just suddenly being killed. That this was like uh, a not dangerous way to engage with those ideas of like your entire family being under threat suddenly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about saying, hey, what if like an enemy like. What if like an enemy killed my family or hurt me, but the enemy is nature itself?
Yeah.
It's an immaterial enemy.
And of course, this all ended, this era, when 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
Because suddenly
Like
these concepts were becoming very real for a lot of people in America. And then it wasn't a spectacle anymore. It was more like something that could remember, people would remember their like national trauma.
yeah, like not to go too much in the past because we need to talk about the thing. Not much in the future. I mean, but like if you look at the disaster movies that exist by after 9/11 and into 2000s, 2010s, and even now, it's much more. They're much more mid-rise. The ones from America, they much more have a gritty aesthetic to them.
Yeah, and they're more focused, I guess, on environmentalism nowadays.
Yeah, because like I mentioned before, even like America has like a big oil lobby and stuff like that. Like even certain oil lobbies have to cynically say that climate change is real at this point, because you cannot just be like all the American like soap operas where like the oil guys like hey, yeah, let's put some oil. Climate change, that's not the thing, because you have to even the big evil companies have to cynically admit that's real.
Yeah. Now it's more about like managing their role in the destruction of the planet in a way where it doesn't look like they're that involved in it.
Yeah.
Like where it looks like they're actually trying to help while they're just like selling emissions to each other and shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, they can't like deny it at a certain point because it becomes like a publicity negative.
Yeah. But yeah, by 90, but like 1997, there was like a big like point of like there was just so many disaster movies,
Yeah, this was
so many.
basically almost the breaking point for the entire genre, because both of these movies were not super successful at the box office. So people were kind of
Yeah,
getting tired of seeing shit getting destroyed.
yeah, because like it's very fun. It's like in the 70s they blew themselves up because they exploded because there was just a because there was just so many disaster movies that was just here's a bunch of character actors in a disaster movie. So in the 70s that by the the 80s did nothing serious. The same thing happened in the 90s. There was just so many of these movies that they just stopped existing after a while because they just kept putting.
Yeah, the market got oversaturated, and I guess the same happened in the 90s. Just like studios invested and lost way more money when like their catastrophe movie failed in the 90s, because it wasn't just like a bunch of character actors in a room. It was like
Yeah.
millions of effect budget just going to waste.
Yeah, this is like this is like kind of the start of like like the kind of like very like grotesque spending money on like special effects and everything. Just the using of them and like like I'm not saying that leads to it. Like kind of like you kind of can see like a direction from this to like Marvel stuff and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
especially like the Avengers ones that are like about a lot of destruction in big cities.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Like that's just quick. That's the thing. A lot of disaster movies may not be as popular as they are, but yes, as they were. But like the aesthetics of them still like presents a lot of like popular media.
yeah, there's almost always like a part in a lot of superhero movies where a city is under attack or is getting partially destroyed. We just watched the new Batman movie, and that had like elements of that.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
yeah,
anything else
I think
to say
that's a
about this
good
time period?
overview about like the context of catastrophe movies at the time these movies came out. Um,
Yeah, I think.
I think we're going to talk about the reception itself more in the different points,
Yeah.
like about the stuff we want to quote from our sources.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
Yeah,
think
from
let's get right down to it.
yeah. Just I guess before like just one more thing. I guess so. Like, why do you think there was like two volcano movies in this time period? It's just they kind of like just as they kind of just use everything that they did not have a volcano movie. So like they thought volcanoes that's the hit near thing in disaster
Yeah, it
movies.
just feels like they had exhausted most other ways they could like destroy cities. Like they
Yeah,
had,
yeah. So they had to use volcanoes.
yeah, because like earthquakes aren't that impressive to look at most of the time, and storms are almost too common in America to like make a movie of. I think that would like hit too close to home. But a active volcano is something that most people in America would never like get to
Yeah,
see. So it's way more of like a fantasy for them.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's good. Compare and construct.
Yeah, let's.
Introduce us, Luna.
Yeah, this segment is gonna be about like putting these two movies together and comparing them on different levels, like comparing different elements of them. Not essentially in a what is better, but more in a what did they do different and how did it work out. And we're
Yeah,
gonna start with the cast. So
yeah,
just I guess to talk it down real quick. On one side we have Volcano, who has in the lead roles Tommy Lee Jones and Anne Hatch. And then, like in supporting roles, we have people like Gabby Hoffman, Don Cheadle, Keith David, and John Carroll Lynch, to name a few. And then down to speak, we have Pierce Brosnan himself, of course. but I don't remember actually too many of the other people in that movie. Linda Hamilton, Jamie Rennie Smith, Jeremy Foley. I don't know these people. Charles Hallinan. I recognize that guy. But yeah, in terms of cast, I would say Volcano is way more stacked.
Yeah.
Because Dante Speak has one really famous person in it.
Yeah.
Did you? How did you like the performances in these movies, Alice, of the actors?
It's interesting because I guess they have to go into how the movies are. Like Volcano is like a lot of the performances in Volcano are a bit more sparse because it's less of like focus on more than like 5 cat. It's much more a separated caster. So even like the bit players get more like attention in scenes, even if they just show up in one or two scenes. And like I think the performances are pretty like okay. Like the writing in like Volcano, we're gonna talk about this when we talk about the writing. It's like pretty sparse. There's not a lot. There's not a lot of like character to these characters, I mean characterization development, but it works fine. All these characters, like the acting is fine in itself. Like Tommy Lee Jones always does a decent job with his roles. Yeah, so there's a scene that I really like. Speaking of the acting, where there's the lava from the volcano is going to like the metro, to the LA metro. So like one of the workers there is rescuing everything, and the volcano and the lava is like covering the floor, so he has to jump, and he has to jump and rescue somebody, and then to that person, and then he decides to sacrifice himself. And there's a part while he's dying, he prays.
Right. Yeah. While he's going through the cart of that subway.
And I thought that was actually like a pretty small that seems to open up pretty good, because it gives like this idea of like this worker that's ready to sacrifice himself. So like he's using his fate as a way to put himself ready to that, and that actor does that scene very well.
I think that was John Carroll Lynch. I always remembered that part from as a kid because it's so dramatic. The way he jumps into the lava to save a guy.
Yeah, it's dramatic, but it works in the film's reality very well. It feels it's all like very well acted and everything. A good scene. But yeah, I think the movie is like it's a fine acting movie. I think the book and everyone does those all very very well. For Dante Speak, I think Dante Speak is like very sterile in the first half.
Yeah.
Like Pierce Brosnan, he can act, but I think he just always kind of like. It feels like after he was James Bond, every character he plays is just like just James Bond, basically.
Yeah. It's almost jarring because you imagine he would be like one of the most conventionally attractive geologists in the world with like charm and like his attitude and all. You would think he would end up in a magazine of like, and nowadays he would like end up as an article online of, you won't believe this hot geologist and what he does on Instagram.
No, it's gonna be like one of those memes. Like it's gonna be like one of those memes of like, oh hey, this hot person from somewhere, and then people get horny for that person, and then oh no, that person is a fascist.
Oh damn! Turns out the geologist is also a eugenicist.
Well, but no, I think Pierce Brosnan's like barely like Stella in this movie. He does appear like no, like kind of like just like not energetic, not that thing like acting to it. Very like subdued. It's not bad. Just kind of is nothing for the first half. The second half, when the actual like volcano erupts and everything, he gets much more energy. Starts scaling, so it's more emotion.
That's
but
true.
It's very much like but it's like kind of a better like subdued role. Still, Dana Hamilton was plays the love interest. Basically, it's just like you can. There's a point you cannot just separate the acting from like the writing. It's just like she does like a fine job, but it's very much like the character she plays very much like the typical love interest character.
Yeah, she doesn't really get anything to do out of like being a love interest and like um, having almost like maternal role for the kids that they're protecting.
Yeah, so like. And like after that, the cast mostly gets just like this year, like these Yasha's theme and everything, just like kind of like nothing 90s characters, including but there's the coffee guy. Don't you remember the coffee
Yeah,
guy?
I remember the guy who just said coffee in a really annoying way a bunch of times. I'm actually like I feel bad for him, that actor.
Yeah.
Like he deserved to have like a better role than having to say coffee.
Yeah, no, there's just a character who's like, but I guess it's like the comedic relief, the Asiazi team who's just things being like the dad kind saying coffee, 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 coffee. I'm just like,
Yeah.
he, like here's the thing, he does a good job as that cat, but that cat is very annoying.
Yeah, he's very much like a genie character come to life for a second there.
Yeah, he was like, okay, this movie has like a comic relief character, like, and we need so we have coffee guy.
Now that I think about it, Volcano didn't really have a comic relief guy.
Yeah,
That's weird.
I don't want to say like with Volcano. I do like Volcano does feel a lot more like those like old like 70s character piece just movies because you have like a lot of bit part. No, not bit part. You have like a lot of a lot of people who act in movies often just doing kind of their thing. And like it has some good things. Like I think Don Cheadle's like in very few scenes, but the scenes he is in is pretty good.
Yeah. I wrote that down in my notes. Like, I liked Don Cheadle. Like he was just phoning with people, but he did it very convincing.
I think all of the actors in Volcano do a good job of like, oh yeah, this is people trying to do something while a volcano is erupting.
Yeah, there's more of a like cast of 1,000 people, like the Emmerich style in Volcano, where you
Yeah.
focus a little bit on like a lot of characters. And in Dante Speak, it's way more almost laser focused on the two lead characters and maybe like a few side characters.
Yeah. So because of that, I think I would say the writing in both of them is pretty fine. They don't have like the actors don't have the best material to like but they put in.
That could be a good segue into our second part, which is the plot of the both of
Okay,
the movies.
the plot.
Yeah, I'm just gonna read down my notes here for the two ones when it comes to the plot. For Volcano, I have pretty good pacing and escalation because, like, I think it builds pretty well. Like, it starts all ominous with like the tar pits starting to go like wild, and then suddenly there's like lava in the night, and it's all dramatic, and then it escalates in that hospital scene towards the end. With Dante's Peak, it's more like the first hour kind of drags, and then it goes pretty hard. That's my note here.
Yeah.
Because the first hour really is just like a conventional 90s, like almost romantic family movie. Like, if you cut out a few parts, you wouldn't know this is about a volcano in any way.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about it, I guess, in themes, but the movie feels very weird with that family stuff.
Yeah, it has some weird. It has some very conservative concepts in there, I would say.
Like it's very like nuclear family style.
Yeah. But in terms of like just the plot and the pacing, I say like it does build up a bit too long, but the last part is like pretty cool in the escalation. You have that scene where Pierce Brosnan almost gets crushed by rocks in a mine.
That's good.
And that was like that was like almost. I was almost surprised how intense that scene was. Like for all the bombast that like catastrophe movies have, they rarely have like that kind of weird intensity where you're like uh, scared of somebody's body just getting completely blown up.
Yeah, I think my favorite scene is when when they go to all the volcano ash, as the volcano ash covers everything,
Yeah,
like the town and world. It's in a way like beautifully like shot and everything. It's just like they go to like this volcano ash filled place that looks like snow, and I think that's an intentional thing. It's just like this cover like snow like thing, but it's volcano ash.
yeah. Both of these movies use like volcano ash. One of them uses it for its teams. In a way that even back in the day, the nostalgia critic had even the nostalgia critic was like, that was weird, and that must say something. If even he notices that something's weird, let's go to the teams like Volcano.
Yeah, guess we don't really have anything to say about the plot.
I mean, we talked about the plot. It's just like
Yeah.
they're both very formulaic catastrophe movies. Like
Yeah.
they have build
Yeah.
up, then progressive escalation, and then they have a climax.
Yeah, there's like it's very much like set first act to act, second act, and there's nothing really special about how they do it. Besides that, Volcano uses those acts to talk about various characters.
Yeah.
But still in a better way. Like, it fits in the box still.
There's not really a plot twist or anything.
Yeah. So yeah, let's go about the themes.
The teams.
So-
So here is where I think we're gonna have to like start referencing stuff the director said.
Yeah.
Volcano is, as the director, or no, the writer said about racial tensions in 90s LA. And the frigging volcano is literally a metaphor.
Yeah, the volcano is racism? The volcano is racism.
Yeah, the volcano is racism. And the scene at the end where the kid sees everybody covered in ash and then says, wow, look, they're all the same. It's the conclusion of that team where we're basically being told that racism is bad.
Yeah?
Which, I mean, that's a good message. Just that even the writer admitted in hindsight that this was extremely pretentious.
Yeah, like this, it is also very much like the 90s model of like media written by like white Americans, that it's like by white people. That's very much like, hey, racism is bad. We just need to go get all along. You see, all united.
Yeah,
Etc. etc.
it's also very much like a symbolic gesture. Because like then they wash off their ash, and then everybody gets treated differently again. It's not like anything was solved here. The criminal helps helps the police like set up some barricades to like keep out the lava, and suddenly the cops are like, okay, we don't have to punish this guy anymore. And like it's all very naive.
Yeah, it's all very like, okay, it's very much like, okay, you're part of the statue that is because of systematic racism and stuff. But if you just do a good thing for the cops, it will be well. And we just need to all unite and everything, and then forget that there's no systematic change or anything.
Yeah, it's very much like depending on these like small gestures of cooperation, which I mean, it is really a movie that means well at the core. It just doesn't get into the meat of the stuff it actually wants to talk about in any like meaningful way.
Yeah.
Like the concept of like people working together to like get through a catastrophe is, I think, something you wanted to talk about in context of like that article your friend wrote.
So a friend of mine that I know is listening to this podcast. So hey, Pisa, I hope I don't fuck up this shout out to you. If I fuck up, shout at me on the voice caller. It's all fine. But yeah. So a friend of mine, wrote this very much good article. Your apocalypse is bad and wrong, and I know, and I would know that. I'll link it in the YouTube description. That's very much about like apocalyptic, like post-apocalypse, like Western media, and how it like uses the aesthetics of like global South countries and the crimes American imperialism and like the Western imperialism has done to them. As like, oh no, the world, if the world goes apart, if the apocalypse happens, we're all gonna kill them. We're all gonna kill ourselves. And we're gonna turn into carnivores, etc., etc. Ignore that cannibalism is a myth.
Yeah, basically the generic like zombie outbreak setting, or like stuff like what was that Ubisoft game called, where they literally said if you didn't have guns, you were killed.
Was that like the Division or something?
Yeah, the Division, right? Like that's like the most that kind of story.
Yeah, like yeah, but like the thing is, like it does that in reality, like the article says very clearly, when people like the global south, when the disaster happens, when like a hurricane happens, like people don't kill themselves, they help themselves.
Yeah,
it's like no one turns into like a cannibal after the disaster.
I feel that's like something that America kind of lost, because like when we look at Volcano, they actually do attempt to show people working together, maybe not in like the most realistic way or the most like way that makes sense in terms of like the police being helpful in any way.
Yeah,
but they at least attempt to like go for that concept. But if you look after 9/11, basically everything is too gritty to like show people working together. Everybody's like eating each other.
Yeah, but yeah, like the thing is, I just want to mention this because like, why the two movies don't go into this much. This even if this article is talking about post-apocalypse media, like this is a thing that happens a lot in disaster media still. And it because they both West post-apocalypse media and disaster media are kind of related to themselves. So get this, and also like you can do media about people like helping us out, about this, like the article started out like there's like human generation, a lot of stuff. Also started out like pathologic too and stuff like that. But also like even in Volcano, when people are helping themselves, and there's belief of like people who help themselves, it's still like authorities helping, and I don't mean, and it's like the cops are helping, etc., etc. They still believe that the cops will save us from this.
Yeah, there's still a certain belief that like the infrastructure, like, and the ordained authorities of like a certain thing, like the main character, he's the director of the city's office of emergency management. So he is literally the appointed authority to execute this scenario, like to do stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, I want to start this article because like this is a combination of disaster movies, and even when even Volcano is trying to do a helpful thing, it still fails in the issues of relying to those Western systems that we are told that if they fall apart, we're all gonna die, and are gonna turn into night cosplayers.
Yeah, we just become like the trash mobs in front of New Vegas. Just running around shooting at shit.
But anyway, I would recommend everyone to read this article. It's very good. Also, I got started out a friend. Please read it. Very good article. And speaking of themes, because we're talking about Volcano, and speaking of racism, is it time to talk about Dante's Peak?
Yeah, let's shift to Dante's Peak. Because like on Teams, I just have written all caps, attack on idyllic rural America.
White America, specifically putting the white.
Yes,
This
because
is
like there is a black person in that movie, but it's like a black woman in a old timey dress in one scene, and she doesn't say anything.
so. Let's go into this. The plot of Volcano is like the volcano eruption is happening in what's called like America's most beautiful town or something.
Yeah, it was
I
like
think that's what they
voted
call it.
like one of the greatest towns to live in America or something.
So okay, so this is like, let's talk about the aesthetics of like quiet rural America. Okay, this is a quiet town, a small town, and it's also mostly white. And the movie like just puts this old timey aesthetics. Even we're gonna talk about this later, how like the romance stuff between like Boston's cat and Nina Hampton's cat is. That's very much like the nuclear family.
Yeah.
So it's very much putting the same as of like, this is a thing that is very much like a classic like horror disaster thing. If like it's disaster thing. Well, like you say, the silver shark is attacking the idyllic white people east town.
Yeah.
So they're doing the same thing as like SARS, but the volcano is like the volcano is attacking like the best town ever in America, and it's all like just rural white small town.
I want to shout out that scene of Volcano because they do this on some level. Because there is a scene where the lava destroys a store that has like marriage dresses in them.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, that magma, that magma antimatters. That lava is queer actually.
Yeah, like my only interpretation is there. This is gay marriage coming to like destroy LA.
Ah.
No, like there's a lot of readings there, but it is weird that both these movies have like a focus on families getting attacked, which I guess is the central like intrigue of disaster movies. What if my family got volcanoed? But this is also really weird, especially with Dante's Peak that focuses so much on a perfect little town that has basically no black people, and everybody dresses old timey to a degree where you would think it's like a David Lynch movie.
Like this is one of those things where you need to like. This is one of those things where you need to actually like look at like what would historically like be a town like this. Like
It's hard to tell. What would it be, like Salem?
No. What would be historically is like it would be a segregation town because that's what those type of towns in America are, still are.
Yeah, weirdly
Like,
enough, there's one black person, so it's not complete segregation. But apparently, there's just one or two random black people that like accidentally landed there or some reason. I don't know what happened because you would think there would be, if there's black people, that there would be like a black community, so that we would like see a black family maybe at some point leave the city when the volcano erupts. But no. Um, but yeah, in terms of teams, like this, there isn't much to chew on because this is like a character piece, right? This is about like Pierce Brosnan's trauma of losing his wife in a another volcano outbreak where a lot of like non-white people get hurt, but the real tragedy is that one white woman that dies.
yeah, this is like it's very much like the typical like this is a death movie. This is such a death movie.
Yeah, it's kind of that.
It's very much like the form of like, okay, here's like a white cis guy. He's very sad about his wife. He finds the romantic interest, his replacement nuclear family that he falls in love with, and then struggles with that. And it's very much like that kind of like kind of just vibe of like, okay, this is a movie about this guy suffering while the volcano is happening.
Yeah, and also like I said, I think when we watched it, like there could be an interesting story here about like PTSD and this guy trying to like not make the same thing happen twice. because he already saw this happen once. Like there are like specters of that story in there, but it doesn't quite have the focus. Like it's too busy like having like an extremely cool scene of like a mudslide destroying a bridge to like think about that too much. And then towards the end, it just becomes like literally a series of like Hollywood tropes of like them getting saved, and then there's a Hollywood kiss in both of these. Actually, heterosexual Hollywood kiss.
Yeah.
It's very much like it. They basically succumb to cliches in the end, both. Just Volcano had way more ambitions, while I would say Dante Speak is very formalist. It's very much sometimes a movie about a big volcano. It's just a movie about a big volcano.
Yeah, the volcano. Yeah, the volcano ass is snow possibly.
Yeah,
There's some snow. What kind of snow?
yeah. I don't think it was like that racist that you could say the volcano is black people actually, but not at all. I think there's like not
Yeah.
enough going on in the script to like warrant a deeper examination of like
It's just kind of
metaphors.
a nothing script.
Yeah,
Like, it's just kind of nothing. It's just one of those scripts that has like a bunch of like heroes, a bunch of biases, like a bunch of people from America, a bunch of white people from America in the 90s have, and then just in a kind of nothing action movie.
yeah. Like the fear here is that the idyllic America is going to get destroyed, but it doesn't actually specify like what the actual threat would be. I guess it's a volcano.
Yeah, it's the volcano. The volcano.
So yeah, do you have anything else on the teams?
Yeah. I wanted to mention about Volcano. I wanted to mention Volcano's director,
Yes.
with because mostly just a subtle to another thing. So Volcano's director, let me actually look here. Okay, Volcano's director is Mick Jackson, who is a mostly English TV director who did the very good series Twelves, which is like a British like classic television thing. It's a post-apocalypse thing about like what if like nukes would drop in the UK. That's the trafficking that Amazon. It has a lot of issues a lot of that post-apocalypse media has, but I'll say this: it's one of the most visually like disturbing things I've ever seen. It's a thing that for all the issues it has some of the most visually like horrific, like disturbing imagery I've seen about the fallout of like a nuclear war.
Yeah,
And it's
if I remember correctly, it had quite the influence on Children of Men, right?
yeah. It has a lot of issues, a lot of that Western post-apocalypse media has, but I'll say this: the way the the imagery is used in the play is very interesting. I think it's worth a look. There's content warnings for like nuclear war, of course, and a lot of stuff like that. A lot of like warfare energy imagery, a lot about that mortality. I think there's some sexism also, like possibly something about women characters. But yeah, I think it's worth checking out. It's very interesting because the thing about Volcano and stuff like that is like they very much like studio projects, where like the directors really like they matter, but they very much this thing about the studios wanting to make like the next big disaster movie.
Yeah. Like there maybe there was like espionage going on, and one side knew the other one would make a volcano movie because it is very much that these two movies raced each other to like come out first. There's articles we can link that will like mention that I think Dante Speak got its release date put a few days before Volcano, and they like crunched in the post production to get that done.
Yeah. Also, I just want to mention the writer for Volcano, so Billy Wade, the writer that said the script for Dancers, he wrote the first Hunger Games movie, Captain Phillips, which is a fucking awful movie, Overlord, which is this zombie World War II thing, Terminator Dark Fate,
Okay.
the Gemini Man, which I actually like a lot.
Right.
just a very weird body of work.
Yeah, like he really feels like a dude who has a lot of ideas, but the end result on screen is like kind of mixed.
Yeah. The person who shot Volcano, Theo Bandesad, saw the first Blade movie and then went words, and then I'm just gonna read this because I think it's funny. Yeah, grown-ups waren, ze scoteert Big Daddy, grown-ups too, little Nicky, all of the classical like Adam Sandler comedies.
Look, he was a Happy Madison staple. He needed the check. He needed the box.
Yeah, he needed that Ravi Manson money.
Yeah. Okay. So how would you like rate or interpret the cultural relevance of those movies at the time they came out and now?
At the time they came out, they were both like kind of like but Dante Speak surpasses box office. I think similarly with Volcano, but I don't think like looking at it historically, I did a lot of looking. It doesn't seem like this movie's made a big of a splash. I think both Dante Speak and Volcano have now smallish cult fan bases, but like they did not really affect because this was like near like the death knell of like disaster cinema.
Yeah.
In America.
Yeah. I have here written for Volcano. Yeah, it tries, lol. Because Volcano tries to be culturally relevant for 1997 by basically name dropping Rodney King at some point, if I remember correctly. But like it's a very vain attempt at being relevant to like the politics of the day and the issues. And Dante Speak, I have written, this could have literally been in the 70s.
Yeah.
Like this movie is dusty as fuck, even in the 90s in terms of its ideas.
Yeah, it's even just like it's very like traditional. Like you could like here's the thing, you could tell me Dante Speak, you could like put like a 70s filter over it and like sell it as like a man called I don't remember Pierce Brosnan's character name, but you could tell me it's like a man named Phillips or something. The Volcano Explorer.
Yeah.
It was filmed in the 70s.
Yeah, like except for like technology having advanced, like the narrative and the themes, they haven't advanced since the 70s for this story.
You could tell me it was like a 70s Volcano Explorer movie.
Yeah.
It's very much, it's thematic, it's very like structurally older.
Yeah, it's very traditional Hollywood fare.
It's like, sometimes it's not the worst, but it just kind of does nothing besides that. That second ending is kind of the best of that format. That second part of it, because it has the stuff that the Volcano has, a lot of very exciting action, some very good cinematography.
Yeah. It is entertaining to watch, but it doesn't have any cultural relevance. Even nowadays, of course, like both of these movies don't really carry the candle when it comes to like people talking about the ideas that are presented.
Yeah, they both, from what I understand, have both like cult fan bases, but more like because the special effects, or because they have like character actors people remember, you know.
Yeah. Also, a lot of people ranted about the accuracy of these volcanoes.
Yeah, honestly, heads got a bit intense over it.
Yeah, overall, I think people were more pissed at Volcano than Dante's Peak, but people are pissed at both of them if they're like big geology heads. But this is not the goal of this podcast to like explore those inaccuracies. You can watch like I heard of this channel. I think it's called Cinema Sins. If you want to know what's all wrong with these movies, I guess I'm sure he has like an episode about that.
Listen, Ludo, can you start one of those things? He says ding a lot.
Yeah, ding.
The soundtrack for this also, it's kind of nothing.
Yeah, it's both like...
It's kind of like...
it goes into one ear and out of the other. Like I don't remember a single note.
It's kind of like the most like traditional Hollywood thing sounds of like epic disaster music.
Yeah, big
Like
strings, symphonic melody, all that shit.
it's like it's probably fine if you like watching it in the cinema in the 90s. It's 2022. This is how most Hollywood movies sound.
Yeah, like this kind of like spectacular mix has become so like normal, like that it doesn't even register as something special nowadays.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Like,
do have some notes on cinematography.
yeah.
For Volcano,
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
got. I guess the nighttime makes the lava talk. Because that is true. Like the nighttime scenes where you see like the lava flowing around, those are have like a very nice contrast and like the glow of the lava in the night. Especially if you like see the far shots of the city and then the lava going through. Kind of reminded me even of like Shin Godzilla, where you see like the destruction of Tokyo in one scene. Just Shin Godzilla, of course, has the same thing tuned up to 11. Like it's way cooler there. And
Yeah,
Dante Speak, and this goes a bit into the effect work. Cool forced perspective shots in the models. Like they did a bunch of
yeah,
like fake perspective stuff with the models where it looks like stuff is farther away than it actually is to make sense like
yeah.
in a model shot. But in terms of like the camera work itself, there's nothing too special that like caught my eye, I think, in either of these.
Yeah, I think the camera work is good. Like I said, I think the camera work in Dante Speak mostly just where it peaks at like the second part to like end of movie,
Yeah.
because that's where the special effects go really blasting.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like the focus on like the volcano ass and stuff like that. There's a scene where I think they're driving in the car very fast. That's also very good.
Where they drive the car over a bridge.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's where I want to talk about the frigging effects because
yeah. I
uh,
think we don't have really a lot to talk about cinematography, so let's go to the effects because that's kind of the big part of both of these movies.
yeah, like this is interesting to compare because like they diverge a lot in like how they approach effect work because Volcano uses this very new thing at the 90s called CGI, and they use it a
Wow.
lot, and it must have been very spectacular in the 90s to see this when it was like new and fresh. But
Yeah.
now the Volcano, it didn't age that gracefully.
So the CGI volcano is very obvious because that volcano looks like an offset basically. That magma. It's just very like you can notice the distillation very like very fast as the camera and the movie and as the camera closes up on the magma.
Yeah, there's not a lot of texture to it. It's basically just a weird form. It's like a blob, a glowing blob.
Yeah, it's the glowing blob.
Yeah, it's an unofficial sequel.
That's just it's very like fakey looking, which I don't really mind in the movie. It just doesn't age the best. The less very I think the special effects are used very well, like the scene like the scene that messes with like the metal like the LA metal. I think that's very good because the colors are a bit more darker. The cinematography is more focusing on that. So you can notice, so you can like see like the volcano lava just like feeling very hot, very heated.
Yeah, it
It's
conveys
like
heat very well. I remember when I watched this, and when I watched, I think, Inferno or like some movie about a big building burning. As a kid, I would always jump around on the sofa and play The Floor is Lava because I felt so inspired by this movie that I had to play The Floor is Lava immediately. So it does convey that. And it still works on that level. That's like, oh, you don't touch the lava, like gets conveyed very well for the viewer.
yeah, you can really notice they spent a bit on the special effects. Dante's Peak is the one that's more impressive. Honestly, I think it's my favorite part of that movie. there's a lot of stuff like the miniatures, stuff like I mentioned, the volcano has a bit. There's also some like very physical stuff, like using the colors as it goes, like the forest and everything.
Yeah, true. There's a bunch of like I guess
Yep.
stunt work in terms of like the cars driving around.
Yeah, there's like particle effects. There's the lava doesn't actually look bad. Like it's showing like it consuming like the small town and everything.
Yeah, there's one almost jump scare moment where it comes through the house that I found hilarious. Because the lava is basically like a slasher villain just breaking through the wall, trying to murder them.
God, that's what I have to speak to when the lava becomes sentient and starts quacking his oath like, this is I melted you. No, I just want a horror movie about sentient magma. That's funny.
That would be funny.
That's
I guess that's what Darkstalkers is about.
Okay. But anyway, I really like these special effects books on Dante Speak. It's very much like we find a lot of blogs, I think mostly from people working on Dante Speak, from people talking about how the effects work happen. And it seemed both like a nightmare and like very technically impressive.
Yeah.
Like
a bunch of people had like bad reactions to the artificial ash when they had to like film in that for longer times, which makes sense because it was still like, it was artificial, but it was made like of burnt newspaper, so it was still ash at the end of the day. And that's not good for your like lungs and shit.
Yeah, and there was a lot of things about like maybe like overshoot or not if they're embarrassed, and so like I think there's something about like the magma not being controlled and stuff like that.
I think the most impressive stuff for me is like the dam breaking in that scene where they go over the bridge, because they use like a 1:32 model, and I'm like 90% sure, like in my soul, that Peter Jackson saw that scene and was inspired for the like Isengard scene where the Ents like fuck up Isengard and they break the dam, because that also uses like a small scale model and uses a different frame rate to like imitate the water looking bigger than it is. And like it's the exact same techniques they use in both the scenes. And it looks incredible. Like I wasn't sure if it was a model or not when I watched it for the first time. So yeah, I was very impressed by the effect work in Dante Speak. That part really holds up. Like Volcano might have a bit better acting and other parts, but Dante Speak has like the effects locked down.
I'm gonna post in the description some pieces from some people that worked on Dante Speak.
Yeah, we're gonna
Volcano,
post a bunch
of
our research in the description, so y'all can go read up on these movies.
Yeah. Do you have anything else? Besides, I guess, saying who won the Battle of Volcano Cinema.
Yeah, let's just fake it and act like this was actually a contest. And I guess at the end of the day, nobody wins.
Sad twist victory.
Yeah.
No side wins.
Like, because both of these movies have strengths and weaknesses, but overall, it's not like one of these is like a masterpiece.
Yeah, like, here's the thing. Like, I tend to rewatch things I like very often, but like, if you tell me, I would never probably rewatch. I'm never gonna rewatch Dante Speak or Volcano.
Yeah,
because there's that kind of like,
I can imagine that like in 20 years my 90s nostalgia will flare up again. But to be honest, I'm probably gonna throw on Volcano and not Dante Speak. But if my like interest in models or special effect would flare up again, then I would probably watch Dante Speak.
Yeah, like I said before, I think Volcano is much more an interesting movie because like it's much more like it tries to do the thing where, like, because it's theme about how we're gonna fight racism together. That's the Volcano. So it's about more of an ensemble piece that has more like it has more like I remember more the scene at the metro with the person playing than most character stuff in that they speak, because that actually gives me a feeling of emotion in a way that most of Volcano Dante Speak does not work.
I felt an emotion in Dante Speak, and it was annoyance when the guy did the coffee bit. So that's my emotional memory of Dante Speak, getting annoyed at the coffee guy. But yeah, I totally agree. Like, I think Volcano is more ambitious overall.
You can see that this was very much the period of like using special effects for like making you want to think, but like just reading what people are saying about how the special effect work stuff happening in Volcano and that they speak, you can say, yeah, this is also the start of like, naval abuse in special effects work. That's an ongoing issue.
Yeah, like there's a lot about like, I think one of these has like 4 different companies they outsourced effects to.
Yeah, I think one of those is like the James Cameron's company. That's still like one of the big ones that does like special effect work.
Yeah, and there's like confirmation of crunch in post-production in Dante Speak for sure.
It's still an issue currently. It's even more worse.
I guess we finally found the cultural relevance.
Yeah, label exploitation.
Yeah, it's just not inside the movie. But yeah,
but as you can say, you can follow me. I'm Arasula of I'm Arasula of on Twitter. Arasula of on Twitch. I stream Obscure Video Gamers. Arasula of on YouTube. Trying to do more video content. Am I anywhere else? Letterboxd. Woes 3 is my name there. Anything else? Any side note?
My Twitter is Ludovico_Limited. I never post there, but like you can follow me to like boost my ego.
Yeah.
But also we have like Twitter for this podcast now.
Yeah, our Twitter is Gemini Movies, the Twin Movie Podcast. It's Gemini Movies 1 is the handle. You can follow us. We're gonna get that soon for later.
Yes, and don't forget, if you want to support this podcast, then please support the Patreon of Alex.
Yeah. Also, one more thing, because this is the final part of the podcast. So how this podcast works is after we randomly select the movies using the Twin Movie page on Wikipedia for twin movies. And after every episode, near the ending, we select the next movie we're gonna cover. So let's go to that exciting part.
Oh wow! I didn't even know we would do this live, but let's do it.
Yeah, let's go! I'm using random org for this, so it gave me number 11. Number 11 is Satilicon.
Wait, for real?
Yeah, it's Satilicon.
Oh, you did enter it for like all the numbers we have, right?
Wait, actually, how many numbers we have? Wow.
It doesn't count if you do it like this.
Oh no! I was excited for Satilicon.
I'm gonna send you the document.
Okay, now number is the correct number is 124.
Okay.
Which is Happy Feet and Subs.
Holy shit! Let's go. Let's go.
Okay,
See you all next time for some real penguin action, everybody.
Yeah, we can talk about penguins. Thanks, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe, like. Bye.
Bye.